You got the time?
1, 2, 3 finish for Hendrick Motorsports.
Of course you do. You're here in Martinsville. This week, it's what's on the line.
William Byron comes off turn 4 to win at Martinsville.
So I guess you could say the time is now.
I bet he likes this place now.
This is Around the Track.
If you haven't noticed, it's time to go back to the roots of racing, and that means it's time for the very first short track of the season. Welcome into this week's edition of Around the Track, getting you ready for the race at Martinsville. Carla Metz, Gabe McDonald.
Yeah, going back to the paperclip, and a lot to look forward to this race weekend. We're going to talk to some of the biggest storylines with NASCAR pit reporter Alan Cavana, plus the Cup Series points leader and your reigning Daytona 500 champ, Mr. William Byron, stopped by the studio this week to talk about his win on the paperclip last season. Also, Morrill and Harrison Burton, he's adjusting to his new team on the Xfinity Series side as well.
That's right, but before we get to any of that, let's give you the nuts and bolts of Martinsville. And you've already heard Gabe mention the track nickname, right? It's called the paperclip, and it's pretty simple. It's shaped just like one. It's a half-mile oval where drivers in the Cup Series will turn 400 laps to the finish line at an average of 76 miles per hour. So not the fastest speeds given the length of the track, but that does mean more bumping and banging. Also, track position is going to be key, so pay attention to qualifying. Drivers, of course, are going to feel the pressure of the short track. Not only do they want one of the more unique trophies in the sport, but Martinsville is also the cutoff race for the Championship 4 in October.
You know, I actually saw a graph this weekend just from where Next Gen has gone, even at a track like Homestead, the disparity between the first and the last place car. You know, it was, you know, say this much in year one of Next Gen, and it's just everyone's the same. And so you put that on a short track, it just makes passing really, really, really difficult.
Yeah, Martinsville, we definitely have that one circled because it's such an important race late in the playoffs in the round of 8 to make it into the championship event that you've got to be good at Martinsville.
And the trophy is the coolest one we got, the grandfather clock. I don't think there's not one track out there that I think the drivers talk about the trophy as much as Martinsville, about getting a clock.
Time to check out our Martinsville track trends for this weekend. We got some pretty odd stats in the paperclip, like the last 7 races, they were won by drivers 30 years old or younger. Also, the last 5 Martinsville races were won from starting positions outside of the top 10. So maybe don't sweat it if qualifying doesn't go so well before the race this weekend. And finally, all but 3 of the last 76 races at Martinsville were won by a driver with at least 100 career Cup Series starts. So clearly, experience does matter a lot here at the paperclip. And it's time to take a deeper dive with our race analyst for the weekend. He's everywhere in racing, but you can usually find him on pit road.
That's right, Alan Cavana joining us once again. It's hard to believe that after this race, we're going to be 7 races into the season already.
Yeah, nearly 2 months already into the season. We're learning a lot, but going to a short track for the first time, big deal.
Yeah, and when you think of Martinsville, or at least when I do, I always think of that viral moment when Denny Hamlin was making fun of Joey Logano after the off-track incident, talking about short track racing.
Just short track racing.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I think of. But this is the first short track of the season. What excites fans the most about this track, and why do drivers love it here?
Well, it's just the close confines of the track, right? You can't hide on this track whatsoever. It's one of the oldest, so you think kind of the Wrigley Field feel for NASCAR going back to Martinsville. And we can't, you mentioned it before, how important this race is. Later on in the fall, this is the last time to punch your ticket to the championship race. You have to be good at Martinsville, and you have to be good at racing in close proximity like you're seeing here. If you're going to run into somebody, you almost have to at least one time per race in 500 laps to get to the front and get a victory. And the victory is all the more important here, especially when you think now what it could do to mean getting into the playoffs and what it could mean into the fall getting into the championship race.
Now, when you talk about teams that have been good here at Martinsville, you automatically think Hendrick Motorsports, of course. They won 5 out of the last 9 at Martinsville. William Byron won last spring, a special moment for the team as well because you had Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott right behind him. Why has HMS been able to be so good here over the course of their history?
Great question. A lot of teams would love to know because this has been their playground for 40 years. Their first win for HMS came at Martinsville. Then you had Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson. They have just dominated this little track in Virginia for decades, and they're continuing to do it now. 1-2-3 finish last spring for this team. They led nearly half the race with our boy Willie B getting the win. Kyle Larson has won here before. The best of the best seem to win at Martinsville, and the best of the best seem to just race for HMS. Alex Bowman needs to get it done. Maybe he can do it, get that grandfather clock. but these cars, it's always been a very special track for HMS for both good and, of course, bad reasons, but there's so much meaning to this track for the team. They just always show up. It's special to them.
Yeah, a lot of history there for HMS. And as good as HMS is currently running, you've also got Team Penske has brought the speed each week. You got Joey Logano, Austin Cindric, Ryan Blaney ranking the top 3 in laps led in 2025. A total 553 laps altogether, but still no wins. Ryan Blaney, the only top 5 finish.
Unreal.
Like, what is going on here? Logano hasn't even finished in the top 10.
No, it's unbelievable how good they can run and then how poorly they can finish. But that's just the nature of the beast so far. Joey Logano's not showed up in the top 10 so far this season. He's the defending champion. They've led all the laps. They've had the performance. They've had the speed, but it always seems to be something, whether it's a blown engine, a wreck, a mistake on pit road. All of these things add up. And yes, I know they are running well. They are Team Penske. There's nothing to worry about in the long run. But a famous poet once said, numbers don't lie, check the scoreboard. And the scoreboard says they got nothing to show for all their performance so far this year. They have to turn it around.
Absolutely. That great poet being Mr. Sean Carter. Well, for many drivers, their results have been stopped by penalties so far this year. You have some loose wheels, speeding on pit road, even pit road entry. We've seen it the first 6 races. Does it feel like maybe more than normal, and how do drivers really minimize those mistakes?
It's tough when we just think how early and how many mistakes that we've seen so far with these loose wheels, because they're so costly, right? And all you can think about is it just shows you how important these pit stops are. This is a team sport, and when you come down pit road, all these athletes have to perform. Everyone's got to be on top of their game, but it's just so fast that they've gotten down to performing so quickly, these pit stops. There's so much pressure that sometimes that leads to mistakes. You see a loose wheel, Chase Briscoe, it costs him. It doesn't only cost you in the race, it costs you 2 races worth of penalties because you have suspensions to your top guys that aren't there anymore. It happened to Kyle Busch. And I know some of them aren't penalties, but look, Chase Elliott got caught last week going into the pits. That probably cost him a shot at the win. Yeah. And maybe not penalties, but also mistakes. Joey Logano, pit issues. The last 2 races have cost him chances at wins. So when you think about penalties and or just mistakes, pit road, very, very costly for some teams.
It does feel like there's a little bit more maybe this early in the season for 2025, but let's hope those drivers can make the mistakes at a minimum. And speaking of drivers, you're about to hear from the points leader right now.
Even the years that we've kind of been off, like 1 car is usually good enough to win the race.
We've said it already, but Hendrick Motorsports went 1-2-3 last spring. Can they do it again? HMS would sure like to think so. Garage Confidential with William Byron is on deck.
And in the Xfinity Series, Austin Hill found victory lane already this year, but can he do it in the Cup Series? He'll get several opportunities to try. Those details just ahead on ATT. And while some races have cost drivers, some drivers are getting ready to count the cash too.
That's right. We're talking dash for cash, penalties, and legacy drivers making a name for themselves. That's all coming up when Around the Track continues.
Welcome to NASCAR Xfinity Series. Start your engine! NASCAR Xfinity Series, Saturday. Check your local listings.
Back here on Around the Track, we know Cup Series drivers have had their fair share of penalties this season, but so have the Xfinity Series drivers. NASCAR issued fines for 4 teams post-Homestead Miami, all due to unsecured lug nuts found on the cars of Daniel Dye, William Sawalich, Austin Hill, and Anthony Alfredo. Hill was the highest finisher of the 4, finishing P4. Each team will have to pay a fine of $5,000. And while those drivers have to pay up, others are racing for bonus money. Justin Allgaier not only went back-to-back last week and won an extra playoff point for the fastest lap, but he also won $100,000 participating in the Dash for Cash bonus. And he'll get to race for it again this weekend in Martinsville, which you can watch on the CW on Saturday. He's not the only driver with another shot at $100K either. 3 of the 4 drivers from last week are in the race once again. Along with Allgaier, you got the number 21 of Austin Hill, Sam Mayer of Haas Factory, and this week it's Mayer's teammate, Mr. Sheldon Creed. Whoever finishes the highest out of those 4 will get the big payday at the end of the race. Carla?
We know Martinsville was a special one last spring with Hendrick drivers going 1, 2, and 3 for the 40th anniversary at HMS. But it was William Byron who got to victory lane, and since then he's added another Daytona 500 trophy to his resume, which gave us quite a bit to discuss earlier this week in Garage Confidential. And we haven't spoken to you since Victory Lane in Daytona. How was it this year, your second time winning? I know I had kind of asked you then what you were looking forward to celebrating, but now going through it 2 times, what was maybe your most favorite moment from that?
Yeah, it was just, I think honestly just celebrating with the team and getting a chance to, enjoy it with them after the race. We got a chance to, be in tech and the next day doing the breakfast with the whole group. So that was really fun and just a little bit more time this year. I felt like last year was really rushed because it was a Monday night. So this year I got a chance to enjoy it and kind of get the season started in a really good way.
Yeah, already locked into the playoffs. Your results this season have been really good. I think Kendrick Motorsports as a whole, but for you, 4 top 10s, 3 top 5s. Where do you feel like you and your team are sitting right now with the 24?
Yeah, I think we've been really good. Feel like we could have won any race this year so far. We've definitely could have finished in the top 5 in all of them so far. So it's just, I think honestly, just trying to figure out the Saturday to Sunday transition and figure out what we need to do on Sundays to, keep up with the racetrack and honestly a little bit of just luck, I guess, like having cautions go your way because we've had a couple of situations where we got put to the back and because of a caution and or a speeding penalty this weekend. So just gotta clean those things up a little bit, but still leading the points, which is great, and hopefully we can get another win this weekend.
And now we get to go short track racing. A lot of drivers maybe favorite words. How do you feel about going into Martinsville, a place that you've won at twice, so you have to feel at least a little confident there?
I do. I think I do and I don't because I feel like we've had good runs there and then we've had some runs where it's just kind of okay. So we have some work to do from Bowman Gray this earlier in the year. I think that in the fall at Martinsville we were really strong. We kind of fell off towards the end of the race with some damage, but feel like we can go to Martinsville, have a really good run. It's probably going to be the same usual contenders up front. So I feel like we can be in that mix.
And you and I were talking off camera about the different tires that are going to possibly be used for Martinsville. This looks like they're going to use the same one from last year as well. Where do you think this race is going to come down to when it comes to Sunday?
Yeah, I think it's probably going to come down to the long run. So, I think it's just going to be about being good for 80 laps or so. And you're not really going to have a chance to see that on Saturday. You're probably only going to run 40 to 50 laps. So hopefully for us, we can be in a position where, when we get to Sunday, we have a good long run car. And the short run's important in Martinsville just to keep track position, but it's really about, what your car does from lap 40 on tires. So with this tire, it's a lot softer, so I think it's going to probably promote the long run cars.
Yeah, the 24 team doing really well right now, but also in the point standings, Hendrick Motorsports as a whole doing very well. Martinsville is a track that you perform well at. 5 out of the last 9 races, I believe, have been won by a Hendrick Motorsports driver. Why have y'all been able to be dominant there?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like history, I feel like. It's a really good notebook from start to finish. Like, we've just had so many years in a row where we've been strong and someone's been good. Like, even the years that we've kind of been off, like, one car is usually good enough to win the race. So that just keeps the knowledge going, and you never have one of those guessing weekends where you're like, oh, we're not very good here. Let's just try something off the wall. So I think we've only had maybe one race like that I can remember in 23 in the fall where none of us were good, but other than that, we've always been strong.
Are you going to try to go after the 1, 2, 3 finish again like last year?
Yeah, I mean, that was competitive. Like, we were all just really pushing each other that weekend with the 40th anniversary weekend, and everyone wanted to win that race. So it was cool that our team could do that, and I just felt like it was super competitive between all of us. But I think it'll be the same. Honestly, we're all running so well, I feel like any of us could win.
Well, we appreciate you stopping by, and good luck at Martinsville this weekend.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
When it comes to pedigrees, the roots run deep in NASCAR. You've got the Pettys, the Allisons, the Elliots, and most certainly the Earnhardts. One of those names is adding another racing generation. We'll tell you who next.
And Burton's could also be added to that list as well, but we're talking about Harrison Burton for a different reason. He's with the new team in the Xfinity Series this year. But how's it going so far in 2025? The driver of the 25 will answer that when Around the Track continues.
Austin Hill is getting a shot at the Cup Series yet again. The Xfinity Series driver will drive 5 Cup Series races for RCR, driving the number 33 Chevy Camaro. The first of his 5 dates will be in 2 weeks in Darlington. Hill has driven in the Cup Series once in the past 3 seasons. He already has a win in the Xfinity Series this season, and of course race for the championship in 2024. Andy Street will be his crew chief for that part-time schedule, and fans love racing legacies. Well, here's another one. Wyatt Miller, the 13-year-old grandson of Dale Earnhardt Sr., just won his first race on the pavement in a limited late model race at Hickory Motor Speedway. It was just his second start in a limited late model at the track. Started from the pole, led early before giving up the race lead. He was also able to regain it from Zach Brugner, who had mechanical issues in the race. Miller is the son of L.W. Miller and Kelly Earnhardt Miller. And speaking of legacy drivers, Kyle Busch ran his first race with Brexton here in Charlotte at Millbridge Speedway this week. So a lot of good film moments in the sport lately.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of families and racing, you can't leave out the Burtons. Harrison Burton back in the Xfinity Series and with a new team here in 2025. And that team would be AM Racing. Burton looking to build on a young season, spending the past 3 years at the Cup Series level. He drives the number 25 Ford for his new team and is coming off an 11th place finish a week ago at Homestead. The Huntersville native has had a strong start to his season so far, 6 races in, and he has 3 top 10 finishes. Now he's pleased with how he and his team have started strong to this point of the young season in 2025.
I've been really fortunate to be at a lot of really good race teams and won races and know what it takes and know that we've got a group that's capable of doing that. So now it's just about our execution and getting that cohesion and execution level high enough to where we can compete at a really, really high level. And if we keep competing and keep getting better and better, eventually those wins will come. It's just kind of one step at a time for us now.
Burton's best finish in the Xfinity Series was 8th in 2020 and 2021. Let's take a look at the full Xfinity Series standings heading into Martinsville. Last year's champ Justin Allgaier leading the way so far, followed by Sam Mayer, who's with a new team in Haas Factory. RCR drivers follow with Jesse Love and Austin Hill, with Sheldon Creed rounding out the top 5 at this point of the year. Of the top 10, only 2 rookies, with Connor Zilisch, who's locked in with a win, and JGR's Taylor Gray early in the year. Now, Allgaier certainly has been impressive this season, but Alan, what stands out to you about so far seeing this Xfinity Series a few races into the season 2?
I think it was that driver sitting there in second place, Sam Mayer. We would never doubt Sam Mayer's driving ability, his ability to get victories, but he is going to a new team, right? He started this with a new Haas Factory team. We didn't know what exactly that was going to be like, and there he is sitting there second in points. I think he has 4 top 5s out of the 6 races that we've been to already. So that's a pretty good start, and his teammate Sheldon Creed also in the top 5. So if there were any questions about how that new fangled team, Haas Factory team was going to work out, it's working out.
And I feel like a lot of people were questioning his decision to move from JRM to Haas Factory, but you look at the other top 5 members there, RCR certainly stands out too.
Oh, absolutely. They can get it done. They just have to get those finishes, which they have. They have locked themselves into the playoffs already. Just a lot of their performance comes at those big tracks, the super speedways, the drafting tracks. They got to step it up at the other ones, like the short tracks at Martinsville we're going to, because that's the majority of the schedule.
Yeah, well, Larson, of course, did not lead the laps in Miami, but he led on the ones that matter. Can he repeat his performance on the paperclip? That's what we're asking. We'll tell you what our victory lane locks are next and what Vegas thinks. That's when Around the Track continues. It's hard to believe, but it's already time for Throwback Weekend at Darlington, and we've got the perfect guest to do that with. It's former NASCAR champion, crew chief, and former team owner Ray Irvingham coming on Around the Track. Be sure to check your local Nexstar listings for the time and when you can watch that.
Throwback Weekend, always a good time, but before we get to Darlington, let's see what Vegas has taking the checkered flag at Martinsville. It's Ryan Blaney. He's the favorite at 4-1. After him, last week's darling of the track, Mr. Carl Larson, 5-1 to get to victory lane at the paperclip. Then you have your usual suspects rounding out the top 5. Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, both at 6.5-1, and then William Byron at 7-1.
So pretty good odds there, but the question is, can we on Around the Track beat Vegas? Of course, our guest, Alan Cavana. Who are you going to take for victory lane this week?
The real question is, can Penske finish a race? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm taking Ryan Blaney, the favorite for a reason.
Why are you taking him?
Oh, he's the man there. He's won 2 out of the 3 last races and just seems to get it done at Martinsville. He is the favorite for a reason, knows how to finish, and is not afraid to knock someone out of the way. Plus, he's very angry. He probably should have won the last few races, and engine's blown up, something's gone wrong. He's angry, he can do it.
He also does well under pressure because he's won at Martinsville the last couple of years during the playoffs, so. Yeah.
I'm going with one of the OGs of the sport. We talked about it earlier, guys that have to have a lot of cup starts to get it done. Give me Denny Hamlin, 5 wins at Martinsville. However, of course, none with the next-gen car. Last win at the paperclip back in 2015, but he has 4 top 5s in the next-gen car at the Paperclip so far. And we all know, one of the best short track racers in the entire game. Between Martinsville, Darlington, and Bristol the next 3 weeks. You heard it here first.
All right.
He's going to get a win one of these next 3 races. He loves these 3 tracks. Denny Hamlin is going to get one. Hopefully this weekend, though. We'll
also from Virginia. What do you think about that pick?
Oh, I mean, why not? Denny Hamlin at Martinsville. I mean, kind of his home track there, that in Richmond, but he's got all the grandfather clocks here, right? He's so good at that type of racing. But the next-gen car has been something of an impediment to him in getting that success again. So I think that'd be a nice monkey off his back to finally get it done. So there's no more questions for Mr. Hamlin. Plus, he needs a win.
He does need a win pretty badly. But I'm going to go out on a limb here, right? I'm saying William Byron got it done under pressure. The 40th anniversary for HMS last season. 2 wins here previously, top 5 finishes in half of the races this year. You talk about staying up front consistently. You hear drivers say that, and then you finally get your shot if you can stay at the front, and that's what William Byron has done. And so, yeah, I think the Daytona 500 champion for 2025 gets his 2nd victory so far this season. So, yeah, should be an interesting show to watch on Sunday in Martinsville. Well, that's going to do it for us on Around the Track. We'll get you ready for Throwback Weekend at Darlington. That's next week. We'll see you then.